the smell of burnt coffee, and regret had become so familiar that Sofia Chen barely noticed it anymore. She moved through the narrow aisles of Bella's Italian bistro like a ghost, quiet, efficient, invisible. That's how she preferred it. Invisibility was safety. Silence was survival. The lunch rush had finally died down, leaving only a handful of tables occupied in the small restaurant tucked away on Mulberry Street in Lower Manhattan. Sofia wiped down the bar with mechanical precision, her dark hair falling forward to hide her face, a habit she developed over the past 2 years. If people couldn't see your eyes, they couldn't read your fear. Table 7 needs water, Marco called from the kitchen, his thick Italian accent making every word sound like a song. He was one of the few people Sofia felt comfortable around. He never asked questions, never pushed, just accepted her quiet presence and left her alone. Sofia grabbed a pitcher and headed toward table 7, her eyes fixed on the floor. She'd learned to navigate the restaurant by memory, 14 tables, 2 booths, 1 bar. She could walk the entire space blindfolded if necessary. She was halfway to the table when she heard it, not with her ears, exactly, but with that sixth sense she'd developed. The feeling of being watched, the prickling awareness that crawled up her spine when danger entered a room. Sofia's head lifted just slightly, and she saw them. The man commanded the space without trying. Tall, maybe 6'3", with the kind of build that came from discipline rather than vanity. His black hair was styled with precise care, and he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Sofia made in 6 months. But it wasn't his appearance that made her breath catch. It was the way he moved. Controlled. Deliberate. Like a predator who'd long ago mastered the art of making prey feel safe right up until the moment he struck. 2 men flanked him, clearly security. Their eyes swept the restaurant with professional efficiency, cataloging exits, assessing threats, positioning themselves for maximum tactical advantage. But it was the child that made Sofia's heart stop. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, held the man's hand with a grip that looked almost painful. She wore a navy blue dress with white trim, pristine and expensive, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Her face was beautiful, delicate features, enormous brown eyes, but completely blank, empty, like someone had reached inside and turned off all the lights. Sofia knew that look. She'd seen it in her own mirror for months after. No, don't think about that. Don't remember. The hostess, Angela, rushed forward with the kind of nervous energy that said she recognized exactly who this man was. Mr. Rossi, we didn't expect you today. Your usual table is occupied. His voice was deep, lightly accented, Italian, but smoothed by years of American influence. We'll take the booth in the corner. It wasn't a request. Angela nearly tripped over herself, leading them to booth 12, the most private spot in the restaurant. Sofia watched from behind the bar, her hands gripping the water pitcher so tightly her knuckles went white. Vincenzo Rossi. She'd heard the name whispered in the restaurant before. Owner of half the buildings in Little Italy. Rumored connections to organized crime that went back 3 generations. The kind of man you didn't look at directly, didn't question, didn't cross. And his daughter, Isabella. Sofia had heard about her too. Whispered conversations between servers about how the girl hadn't spoken in over a year, how her mother had died in some kind of accident, how Vincenzo had hired every specialist in New York trying to help her, but nothing worked. Sofia. Angela's sharp whisper cut through her thoughts. Table 12. Go. But I don't. Maria called in sick. You're covering her section. Go. Sofia's stomach dropped. She wanted to refuse, wanted to claim she wasn't trained for that section, wanted to do anything except walk toward that booth where Danger sat wearing an expensive suit. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. But refusing Angela meant questions, attention, conflict, and Sofia had spent 2 years building a life where she never, ever drew attention. So she picked up menus, forced her hands to stop shaking, and walked toward booth 12. The 2 security guards watched her approach with flat, assessing eyes. Sofia kept her gaze down, stopping at a respectful distance from the table. Good afternoon, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Can I start you with something to drink? Vincenzo Rossi looked up from his phone, and for a brief second his eyes met hers. They were dark, almost black, and held a kind of exhausted intensity that suggested he hadn't slept properly in months. Or maybe years. Pellegrino. And milk for Isabella. Warm, not cold. Sofia nodded, still not quite making eye contact. She started to turn away when she heard it. A small sound. Barely audible. A whimper. Sofia's trained instincts kicked in before her brain could stop them. She turned back and really looked at the little girl for the first time. Isabella's hands were clenched in her lap, her small body rigid with tension. Her breathing was coming faster, shallow and quick. Her eyes had gone distant, unfocused. Sofia recognized the signs immediately, the beginnings of a panic attack. The restaurant's ambient noise seemed to press in from all sides. The clatter of dishes from the kitchen, the conversation from nearby tables, the hiss of the espresso machine. For most people, it was just background noise. But for someone in Isabella's state, it would feel like drowning. Sofia should walk away, should get the drinks, and mind her own business. That was the safe choice. The smart choice. Instead, she did something she hadn't done in 2 years. She acted without thinking of the consequences. Sofia moved closer to the booth, lowering herself to crouch beside Isabella's seat, so they were at eye level. Vincenzo stiffened immediately, one of his guards taking a step forward, but Sofia was already focused entirely on the child. She raised her hands, slowly, deliberately, where Isabella could see them. Then she signed, her movements fluid and practiced. "You're safe. Breathe with me." Isabella's unfocused eyes flickered, just slightly, a spark of recognition. Sofia continued signing, her hands creating a visual rhythm. In slowly, out slowly. Watch my hands. Follow the pattern. She breathed visibly, exaggerating the inhale and exhale while her hands moved in synchronized waves, rising with the inhale, falling with the exhale. It was a technique she'd learned years ago in another life when she'd worked as a speech therapist specializing in childhood trauma. Before everything fell apart, Isabella's rapid breathing began to slow. Her eyes tracked Sofia's hands, following the movement, matching the rhythm. The rigid tension in her small shoulders started to ease, just fractionally. Sofia kept going, never breaking the pattern, never looking away from Isabella's face. "That's perfect. You're doing so well." In and out. Nice and slow. The restaurant noise faded into background static. There was only this moment, this child, this silent conversation happening in a language most people never learned. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 2 minutes, Isabella's breathing returned to normal. The distant look in her eyes cleared, replaced by something else. Wonder, hope, recognition. The little girl's hands moved, hesitant and unpracticed, forming a single sign. "Thank you." Sofia's throat tightened. She signed back, "You're welcome. You're very brave." "How did you?" Vincenzo's voice cut through the moment, sharp with shock, and something else. Something that sounded almost like pain. Sofia stood quickly, suddenly aware of what she'd just done. She'd touched a customer's child without permission. She'd inserted herself into a situation that was none of her business. She'd broken every rule of invisibility she'd spent 2 years building. "I'm sorry," Sofia said, her voice barely audible. "I shouldn't have. I just saw that she was struggling, and You signed." It wasn't a question. Vincenzo was staring at her with an intensity that made Sofia want to disappear into the floor. "You know, ASL." Sofia nodded, wrapping her arms around herself defensively. "I used to work with children who had communication challenges. Before, She stopped. She wasn't going to explain her past to a stranger. Especially not this stranger. Isabella hasn't responded to anyone in 13 months. Vincenzo's voice was controlled, but there was an edge of desperation underneath. "Not to therapists, not to doctors, not to anyone we've hired. She doesn't sign. She doesn't speak. She barely acknowledges when people are in the room. But she just responded to you." Sofia didn't know what to say to that. She looked at Isabella, who was watching her with those enormous brown eyes, and saw something that broke her heart. The same desperate loneliness she'd been carrying for 2 years, reflected in an 8-year-old's face. "She understands sign language?" Sofia asked quietly. "We don't know what she understands. After her mother died, she stopped communicating entirely. We've tried everything: speech therapy, play therapy, art therapy, medication. Nothing works. She just..." Vincenzo's hand clenched on the table. "She's locked inside herself, and I can't reach her." The raw pain in his voice caught Sofia off guard. This wasn't the cold, dangerous man she'd expected. This was a father, desperate and drowning, watching his daughter disappear, and unable to stop it. Isabella's hands moved again, slow and deliberate. She signed something to Sofia, and Sofia's breath caught. The noise hurts. Can you make it stop? What did she say? Vincenzo demanded, leaning forward. What did she sign? Sofia translated, her voice soft. She says the noise hurts. She wants it to stop. Something flickered across Vincenzo's face. Understanding mixed with devastation. She's never told us that before. Never communicated what was wrong. Sofia looked at the bustling restaurant, seeing it through Isabella's eyes. For someone with sensory processing issues, this would be overwhelming. The competing sounds, the movement, the unpredictability. She made a decision that would change everything. May I? Sofia gestured to the booth seat across from Isabella. Vincenzo nodded, his eyes never leaving his daughter. Sofia slid into the seat and began signing to Isabella. I'm going to help make it quieter. Watch me. She pulled out her phone, an old model with a cracked screen, and opened a white noise app she kept from her therapy days. Soft rain sounds filled the small space around their booth, not loud enough to disturb other diners, but enough to create a buffer of consistent sound that could help mask the jarring unpredictability of restaurant noise. Then Sofia did something else. She took the cloth napkin from her place setting and gently draped it over the salt and pepper shakers on the table, creating a small visual barrier that reduced the amount of movement in Isabella's peripheral vision. Small adjustments, simple techniques, things she'd done hundreds of times in her old life. Isabella's whole body relaxed. Her shoulders dropped, her hands unclenched. She looked at Sofia and signed better, much better. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, tentative and fragile, but it transformed her entire face. And the sound Vincenzo made, half gasp, half sob, told Sofia that he hadn't seen his daughter smile in a very long time. I need to hire you, Vincenzo said abruptly. Sofia's head snapped up. What? I need to hire you to work with Isabella. Name your price. Whatever you're making here, I'll triple it. Quadruple it. No. The word came out more forcefully than Sofia intended. I'm sorry, but no. I don't do that work anymore. Why not? Vincenzo's eyes were piercing, seeing too much. You're clearly trained. You're clearly good at it. And my daughter just responded to you when she hasn't responded to anyone in over a year. Why wouldn't you? Because I can't. Sofia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I'm sorry. I'll send someone else to take your order. She fled before he could respond, her heart hammering against her ribs. In the kitchen, she leaned against the wall, fighting to control her breathing. She couldn't go back to that work, couldn't open herself up to that kind of emotional involvement, couldn't risk caring about a child who might. Sofia. Marco's voice was gentle. You okay? Fine, she lied. Just need a minute. But when she finally forced herself to return to the floor 20 minutes later, Vincenzo, Rossi, and his daughter were gone. The booth was empty except for a business card left on the table, weighed down by 5 $100 bills. The card was simple, embossed black lettering on cream cardstock. Vincenzo Rossi private number. On the back, someone had written in precise handwriting. Isabella needs you. Please reconsider. V. Sofia stared at that card for a long time, her hands shaking. She should throw it away. Should pretend this never happened. Should go back to her safe, invisible life. Instead, she slipped the card into her apron pocket, where it burned like a brand against her hip for the rest of her shift. Sofia's apartment was a studio in Chinatown, 4th floor walk-up, with a window that faced a brick wall and plumbing that groaned like a dying animal. It was small, cramped, and cost too much, but it was hers. More importantly, it was a place where no one asked questions. She dropped her keys on the chipped Formica counter and collapsed onto her second-hand futon, every muscle in her body aching. 12-hour shifts did that. So did carrying the weight of memories you couldn't quite escape. Her phone buzzed. A text from her younger sister. Lily, call me. It's been 2 weeks. I know you're avoiding me. Sofia stared at the message, guilt twisting in her chest. Lily was the only family she had left, and she'd been freezing her out for months. Not because she didn't care, but because caring hurt too much. Before she could decide whether to respond, her phone rang. Lily's photo flashed on the screen, smiling, carefree, everything Sofia used to be. Sofia answered. Hey. Finally, I was about to file a missing persons report. Lily's voice was bright, but there was an edge of worry underneath. How are you? And don't say fine, because we both know that's a lie. Sophia stopped. She couldn't say fine. Not today. Not after seeing Isabella's desperate eyes and Vincenzo's devastated face. I'm tired. New restaurant still awful. It's fine. Pays the bills. Soph, you have a master's degree in speech-language pathology. You should be doing more than waiting tables. I told you I can't. Can or won't. Lily's voice softened. It's been 2 years. I know what happened with Emma was traumatic, but you can't punish yourself forever. Emma. The name alone was enough to make Sophia's chest constrict. Emma Martinez. 8 years old. Selective mutism, following her parents' divorce. Sophia had worked with her for 6 months, making incredible progress. Emma had started speaking again, first in whispers, then in full sentences. Her parents had been thrilled. Sophia had been so proud. And then Emma's father had shown up at the clinic drunk and raged about the custody arrangement. There had been screaming, threats. Emma had retreated back into silence immediately, and in the chaos, her father had. Sophia closed her eyes against the memory. Emma had survived, physically, but the last Sophia heard, the girl had regressed completely, refusing to communicate with anyone. And it was Sophia's fault. She'd been the one working with Emma that day. She'd been the one who couldn't protect her when it mattered. Soph, you still there? Yeah, Sophia whispered. I'm here. Listen, I know you blame yourself for what happened, but it wasn't your fault. Emma's father was unstable. No one could have predicted. I should have seen the signs. Should have known he was dangerous. Should have. Should have what? Been psychic. Lily sighed. You did everything right. The inquiry cleared you. The clinic wanted you to stay. You're the one who left. Because staying meant risking it happening again. Meant caring about a child and being helpless when things went wrong. I met a girl today, Sophia said abruptly, surprised by her own words. At the restaurant. She wasn't speaking. Having a panic attack. I helped her. Silence on the other end. Then, carefully, and her father wants to hire me to work with her. Soph, that's amazing. This could be exactly what you need to. I said no. Why? Because I can't do it again, Lily. I can't get invested in a child and then watch everything fall apart. I can't. Or, Lily said gently, maybe you're exactly what this little girl needs. Maybe this is the universe giving you a second chance. I don't believe in second chances. Well, I do, and I think you should at least consider it. After they hung up, Sophia lay in the darkness of her apartment, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. Vincenzo's business card sat on her nightstand, a stark white rectangle in the dim light from the street. Isabella needs you. But what if Sophia failed her the way she'd failed Emma? What if she couldn't help? What if something went wrong and Isabella got hurt because Sophia wasn't good enough, wasn't careful enough, wasn't? Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She should ignore it. Should block it. Should. She answered. Miss Chen. Vincenzo Rossi's voice was instantly recognizable. I apologize for calling so late. I got your number from your employer. Of course he did. Men like him could get anything. Mr. Rossi, I appreciate the offer, but, as I said, Isabella hasn't stopped signing since we left the restaurant. His voice was rough, strained. She's in her room right now, practicing the signs you showed her. She signed breathe and safe to her nanny. She signed thank you to me when I brought her dinner. These are the first attempts at communication she's made in 13 months. Sophia's throat tightened. I don't know what you did in those 5 minutes, Miss Chen, but you gave me my daughter back. Even if it's just a glimpse, even if it's temporary, you gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. So I'm asking, no, I'm begging, please reconsider. Mr. Rossi, I know about Emma Martinez. Sophia's blood turned to ice. I know about the incident at the clinic. I know about the inquiry. I know you were cleared of all wrongdoing. His voice was matter-of-fact, not judgmental. I also know you left a career you loved because you were traumatized by something that wasn't your fault. How do you? I'm a thorough man, Miss Chen. When my daughter's well-being is involved, I investigate. And what I found is a therapist with an impeccable record, exceptional training, and a gift for connecting with children who can't connect with anyone else. What happened to Emma Martinez was a tragedy, but it wasn't your failure. You don't understand. I understand that you're afraid. I understand that caring about children means risking heartbreak. I understand all of it. He paused. I'm also offering you a chance to help a little girl who desperately needs you. 1 month trial. If it doesn't work, you walk away. No questions asked. But if it does work, if you can help Isabella find her voice again, I will pay you more money than you'd make in 5 years of waiting tables. And more importantly, you'll have given a child her life back. Sofia closed her eyes. This was insane. Vincenzo Rossi was clearly connected to organized crime. His world was dangerous. Getting involved with him meant stepping into territory she couldn't navigate. But Isabella's face floated in her mind. Those desperate eyes. That small, fragile smile. The noise hurts. Can you make it stop? 1 month, Sofia heard herself say. Trial basis. And I need parameters. I work with Isabella, but I don't get involved in anything else. I don't want to know about your business, your associates, any of it. I'm there for her, period. Agreed. And if at any point I feel unsafe, or if I think my presence is harmful to Isabella, I walk away. No arguments. Agreed. When do you want me to start? Tomorrow. I'll send a car for you at 9 a.m. After she hung up, Sofia sat in the darkness, wondering if she'd just made the best decision of her life or the worst. She pulled out her old therapy notebooks from a box under her bed, the ones she hadn't touched in 2 years. The pages were filled with techniques, observations, success stories. And on the last page, in her own handwriting from 2 years ago, a quote she'd used to live by. The children who need the most love will ask for it in the most unloving ways. Isabella hadn't asked with words. She'd asked with silence, with panic, with desperate eyes that begged for someone to understand. And Sofia, despite every fear screaming at her to run, had heard her. She opened a fresh notebook and wrote on the first page, Isabella Rossi, initial assessment. Tomorrow, she would step back into the world she'd fled. Tomorrow, she would risk her heart again. Tomorrow, everything would change. The black Mercedes pulled up to Sofia's building at exactly 9 a.m. So out of place in the chaotic streets of Chinatown that several neighbors stopped to stare. Sofia stood on the curb, her therapy bag clutched in trembling hands, and wondered for the 100th time if she should just turn around and pretend this never happened. The driver, one of Vincenzo's security men from yesterday, opened the door without a word. Sofia climbed in, her heart hammering. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Classical music played softly through hidden speakers, and Sofia had never felt more out of her depth in her entire life. She was about to meet Isabella again, about to step into a world she didn't understand, to help a child she barely knew, working for a man who probably had more secrets than the Vatican. But as the car pulled away from her building, Sofia thought about that small, fragile smile, about Isabella's hands signing, "Thank you," with such desperate hope. And she knew, terrified as she was, that she was exactly where she needed to be. The Rossi estate wasn't what Sofia expected. She'd imagined something ostentatious, marble columns, gaudy fountains, the kind of nouveau riche excess that screamed for attention. Instead, the car pulled through wrought iron gates into a property that whispered old money and older secrets. The mansion was a restored brownstone in the Upper East Side, for stories of elegant architecture that had probably stood for a century. Ivy climbed the eastern wall in carefully maintained patterns. The windows were tall and arched, the kind that let in floods of natural light. A small garden wrapped around the side, surprisingly lush for Manhattan, with a fountain that burbled quietly in the morning air. It was beautiful, and it was a fortress. Sofia's trained. I caught the details others might miss. Security cameras positioned at every angle, reinforced doors disguised as original woodwork. The way the gardener, trimming hedges, had a distinct bulge under his jacket, the subtle positioning of men who looked like they belonged but whose eyes never stopped moving. This was a home designed to look welcoming while being absolutely impenetrable. The driver opened her door, and Sofia stepped out onto smooth paving stones. Before she could take more than 2 steps, the front door opened, and Vincenzo appeared. In daylight, he was somehow more intimidating than he'd been in the restaurant. He wore dark slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms marked with scars Sofia tried not to analyze. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it, and there were shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept. "Miss Chun." He descended the steps with that controlled grace that marked everything he did. "Thank you for coming." "I gave my word." Sofia adjusted her bag on her shoulder, using it as a shield. "Where's Isabella?" "Inside." She's been awake since 6, signing to her nanny about whether you'd really come. Something that might have been vulnerability flickered across his face. She's scared you won't come back. The words hit Sofia harder than they should have. She knew that fear intimately, the terror that anyone who showed you kindness would disappear, leaving you more alone than before. Take me to her. Vincenzo led her through the front door into an entryway that managed to be both grand and welcoming. Hardwood floors gleamed under antique rugs. Artwork lined the walls, real pieces, not prints, Sofia suspected. A sweeping staircase curved upward to the second floor. But what caught Sofia's attention was the silence. The house was remarkably quiet. No blaring television, no aggressive music, no competing sounds that would overwhelm sensitive ears. Even their footsteps were muffled by the rugs. You've soundproofed, Sofia observed. Vincenzo glanced back at her. After yesterday, when you said the noise hurt her, I made some calls. A team worked through the night installing acoustic panels in Isabella's primary spaces. It's not perfect, but it's better. Sofia stopped walking. You renovated your house based on one comment from a stranger? You're not a stranger. You're the first person in 13 months who my daughter has communicated with. He turned to face her fully. I would burn this entire house down and build a new one if it would help her. Installing some soundproofing is nothing. The raw intensity in his voice made Sofia's breath catch. This man, who undoubtedly commanded fear and respect in whatever criminal empire he ran, would reshape the world for his daughter. The soundproofing is good, Sofia said quietly, but there are other adjustments we'll need to make. Sensory-friendly spaces, visual schedules, communication boards. Make a list. Whatever you need, you'll have it. They continued through the house, and Vincenzo provided a quiet tour. Kitchen. The staff knows to keep it quiet during Isabella's waking hours. Library. She spends a lot of time there. The reading nook has good natural light without being overwhelming. Living room. We've removed most of the decorative items. Too much visual stimulation. He'd already been making changes, Sofia realized, adapting his home to his daughter's needs, even without understanding exactly what those needs were. They climbed the stairs to the second floor, and Vincenzo paused outside a door painted soft lavender. This is Isabella's room. She knows you're coming, but she's nervous. She sometimes hides when she's anxious. That's normal. Let me handle it. Vincenzo knocked softly, then opened the door. Bella, your new friend is here. The room was a study in careful design. Soft colors, lavender walls, cream curtains, pale wood furniture. The lighting was adjustable, currently set to a warm, gentle glow. One wall was covered in corkboard, displaying children's drawings and photographs. A reading corner had been created near the window with cushions and a small bookshelf. But no Isabella. Sofia stepped inside, immediately noticing the closet door slightly ajar. She set down her bag and signed, even though she couldn't see the child. Good morning, Isabella. It's Sofia from the restaurant. I came back like I promised. A small sound from the closet, not quite a word, but an acknowledgement. Sofia continued signing as she spoke, her voice soft. I brought some things I thought we could use together. Some books, some art supplies, some games. But we don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Today is just about getting to know each other. She pulled out her phone and opened the white noise app again, letting the soft rain sounds fill the room. Then she settled herself on the floor, her back against the bed, giving Isabella space and time. Vincenzo started to speak, but Sofia held up a hand, stopping him. She shook her head, slightly, let her come to us. They waited in silence. 1 minute, 2, 5. Then, slowly, the closet door opened wider. Isabella peered out, her enormous brown eyes fixed on Sofia. She was wearing pajamas covered in stars, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked smaller than she had yesterday, more fragile. Sofia signed. Hi, I'm glad to see you. Isabella's hands moved hesitantly. You came back. I promised I would, and I keep my promises. Isabella took one step out of the closet, then another. She was watching Sofia with an intensity that suggested she was trying to determine if this was real, if this person who'd appeared yesterday would actually stay. Sofia understood that caution intimately. She'd spent 2 years building walls to protect herself from disappointment. Isabella had been doing the same thing, except she was 8 years old and shouldn't have to know that kind of defensive loneliness. Can I show you something? Sofia signed. Isabella nodded, still wary. Sofia pulled out a book from her bag, a children's picture book about a girl who communicated through drawing because words felt too heavy. It was one she'd used with Emma before everything fell apart. For a moment, holding that book, Sofia's hands trembled. Memories threatened to overwhelm her. Emma's smile, Emma's progress, Emma's screams when her father had. No, this wasn't Emma. This was Isabella. A different child, a different situation, a different chance. Sofia opened the book and began to read aloud while simultaneously signing the story. Her voice was soft, her hands fluid, creating a multimedia experience that engaged multiple senses without overwhelming them. Isabella moved closer, then closer still. By the third page, she was sitting on the floor beside Sofia, her small shoulder barely touching Sofia's arm. By the fifth page, Isabella's hand reached out and turned the page herself. By the time they finished the book, Isabella was leaning against Sofia completely, her body relaxed in a way that made Vincenzo's breath catch audibly. Sofia glanced up at him and saw a man struggling not to break down. His jaw was clenched, his eyes bright with unshed tears, his hands gripping the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Isabella noticed her father's reaction. She looked up at him and signed something that made Sofia's throat close up. "Don't cry, Papa. I'm okay now." Vincenzo dropped to his knees, his composure shattering. "Bella. Oh, mia piccola Stella." Isabella crawled over to him, and he pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. His shoulders shook with silent sobs he'd clearly been holding back for over a year. Sofia looked away, giving them privacy, but she heard Vincenzo whisper in Italian, broken phrases of love and relief and apology that didn't need translation. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were red but clear. He looked at Sofia over Isabella's head and mouthed two words, "Thank you." Sofia nodded, not trusting herself to speak. They established a routine over the next 2 weeks that felt both natural and surreal. Sofia arrived every morning at 9. Sometimes Isabella would be waiting at the window, watching for her car. Sometimes she'd be in her closet, needing time to transition. But she always emerged, always engaged, always made progress that seemed miraculous given how locked inside herself she'd been. They worked on communication in multiple modalities. Sofia taught Isabella more ASL signs, building her vocabulary beyond basic needs into emotional expression. Happy, sad, scared, angry, frustrated, overwhelmed, safe, loved. They practiced using a communication board with pictures and symbols. They did art therapy, painting, drawing, collage work that let Isabella express things she couldn't yet say. And slowly, carefully, Sofia began to understand what had happened to this child. Isabella's mother, Lucia, had been killed in a car accident 13 months ago. But it wasn't just an accident. The car had been forced off the road by a rival family trying to send a message to Vincenzo. Isabella had been in the car. She'd been physically unharmed, protected by her car seat and her mother's instinctive positioning. But she'd watched her mother die, had been trapped in that wreckage for 20 minutes before help arrived, and the trauma had stolen her voice. Sofia learned this not from Vincenzo, but from Isabella herself, through drawings that became progressively more detailed and disturbing. A car, a woman with dark hair, red everywhere, a small girl screaming silently. "She has PTSD," Sofia told Vincenzo one afternoon in his study, after Isabella had gone down for a nap. The selective mutism is a trauma response. Her brain associated vocal communication with the moment of maximum danger and shut it down as a protective mechanism. Vincenzo sat behind his massive desk, his hands steepled in front of his face. The therapist said the same thing. They tried everything, play, therapy, EMDR, medication. Nothing worked, because she didn't trust them. Trauma doesn't heal with technique alone. It heals with connection, with safety, with someone who makes you feel like you're not alone in the darkness. And you make her feel that way. It wasn't a question, but Sofia answered anyway. "I think so. We've built a relationship based on communication. She can control. Sign language, art, written words, they all give her agency. She chooses when to communicate and how. That control is essential for someone whose control was violently taken away." Vincenzo was quiet for a long moment. "You understand this because you experienced something similar." Sofia stiffened. "My situation was different, but still traumatic, still something that made you retreat from the world." His dark eyes were too perceptive. "What happened with Emma Martinez broke something in you. Isabella's trauma broke something in her. You recognize each other." "Mr. Rossi." "Vincenzo." Please. After 2 weeks of you giving my daughter back to me, I think we can use first names. Vincenzo, Sofia corrected, the name feeling strange on her tongue. My past isn't relevant to Isabella's treatment. Isn't it? You're teaching her that it's possible to come back from trauma, to rebuild communication, to trust again. You can only teach that if you believe it yourself. I'm not sure I do believe it, Sofia admitted before she could stop herself. Then maybe healing her will heal you too. The words hung in the air between them, weighted with possibility and danger. Before Sofia could respond, there was a knock at the study door. One of Vincenzo's men, Alessandro, Sofia had learned, stepped inside. Boss, we have a situation. Vincenzo's entire demeanor changed. The vulnerable father disappeared, replaced by the cold, calculating leader of a criminal organization. What kind of situation? The Calabrese family is pushing back on the territory agreement. They're claiming we violated terms by expanding the waterfront operations. We didn't violate anything. They're looking for an excuse to. Vincenzo cut himself off, suddenly remembering Sofia was in the room. Miss Chun, would you excuse us? Sofia stood immediately. Of course. I should check on Isabella anyway. But as she reached the door, Vincenzo's voice stopped her. Sofia. She turned back. What we discussed stays between us. For Isabella's sake and yours. It was a reminder and a warning. Sofia was inside his world now, privy to conversations and situations that weren't meant for outsiders. The kindness he showed her as his daughter's therapist didn't change what he was. I understand, she said quietly as she climbed the stairs back to Isabella's room. Sofia heard raised voices from the study. Plans being made, threats being calculated, the machinery of organized crime grinding forward. She'd known what Vincenzo was when she agreed to this arrangement, but knowing intellectually and experiencing viscerally were very different things. Isabella was awake, sitting in her window seat with a sketch pad. She'd been drawing more lately, not just traumatic scenes, but hopeful ones too. Gardens and sunshine and 3 figures holding hands. Sofia recognized those figures. A tall man, a small girl, and a woman with dark hair like Sofia's. Is that your family? Sofia signed. Isabella nodded, then pointed to the woman in the drawing and signed. Your family now. Sofia's heart clenched. Bella, I'm your therapist. I'm here to help you, but I'm not. Isabella's face crumpled. Her hands moved frantically. You're leaving? Everyone leaves. Mama left. You'll leave too. No. Sofia dropped to her knees beside the window seat. No, sweetie, I'm not leaving. I promised to help you, and I'm keeping that promise. I just meant. But how did she explain professional boundaries to an 8-year-old who'd lost her mother and was clinging to any source of stability? How did she maintain appropriate distance when Isabella was already investing so much emotional trust in her? I'm not leaving, Sofia signed firmly. I'm staying right here. I promise. Isabella launched herself into Sofia's arms, holding on with desperate strength. And Sofia held her back, making a promise she hoped she could keep. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. The incident happened 3 weeks into Sofia's work with Isabella. They were in the garden, enjoying rare October sunshine. Isabella had started speaking again, not full sentences yet, but single words, whispered so quietly they were barely audible. Each word felt like a miracle. Flower, Isabella whispered, touching a late-blooming rose. Yes, that's a beautiful flower, Sofia encouraged. What color is it? Red. The word was soft but clear. They were so focused on this breakthrough that neither of them noticed the man approaching until he was almost on top of them. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with cold eyes and a gun poorly concealed under his jacket. One of Vincenzo's security team should have stopped him, but the gardens had a blind spot near the eastern wall, something Sofia would later learn was a deliberate weakness, a test to see who might exploit it. The girl, he said in accented English. Boss wants her. Sofia's body moved on pure instinct. She positioned herself between the man and Isabella, her arms spread wide. You need to leave. Now. The man laughed. You think you can stop me? I think you have about 30 seconds before Vincenzo's men realize you're here, and then you'll wish you'd left when I told you to. Isabella was frozen behind Sofia, her newly found words stolen by terror. Sofia could feel the child's rapid breathing, could sense the panic attack building. The man reached for Isabella, and Sofia did something she'd never done in her life. She punched him. Her fist connected with his jaw with a satisfying crack that hurt her hand more than it probably hurt him, but it bought them precious seconds. "Run, Bella!" Sofia shouted, even as the man recovered and grabbed her arm, twisting it painfully. But Isabella didn't run. She opened her mouth and screamed. It was the first full-voice sound she'd made in 13 months, and it was absolutely piercing. What happened next occurred in a blur. Security descended from every direction. Alessandro tackled the intruder with professional efficiency. Another guard swept Isabella away to safety, and Vincenzo appeared, moving faster than Sofia had ever seen him move, his face a mask of cold fury. He pulled Sofia away from the struggling intruder, his hands surprisingly gentle as he checked her for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did he?" "I'm fine. Is Isabella?" "Being taken to the safe room. She's protected." His eyes swept over her again, cataloging every detail. "Your arm is bruised, and your hand is bleeding." Sofia looked down and realized her knuckles were indeed bleeding from where they'd connected with the man's teeth. "I punched him." Something flickered in Vincenzo's eyes. Surprise, respect, something else she couldn't name. "You punched him." He was going for Isabella. "I didn't think. You protected her." Vincenzo's voice was rough. "You put yourself between my daughter and danger without hesitation." Alessandro had the intruder restrained, now, face down on the ground with his arms zip-tied behind his back. Vincenzo walked over, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Who sent you?" His voice was conversational, which somehow made it more terrifying. The man spat. "Go to hell." Vincenzo crouched down, his face inches from the intruder's. When he spoke, it was in rapid Italian that Sofia couldn't follow, but the man's face went pale. "Take him," Vincenzo said to Alessandro. "Find out everything. And then handle it." The phrasing was deliberate. Handle it. Not call the police. Not press charges. Handle it in the way that men like Vincenzo handled threats to their family. Sofia should have been horrified. Should have demanded they involve law enforcement. Should have run from this world of violence and retribution. Instead, all she could think about was Isabella's scream. The first real sound in 13 months, torn from her by terror. "I need to see Isabella," Sofia said urgently. "She's in the safe room." "I'll take you." The safe room was in the basement, accessible through a hidden panel in Vincenzo's study. It was surprisingly comfortable, plush furniture, entertainment systems, stocked with food and water. A place designed to protect during emergencies without feeling like a prison. Isabella was there with her nanny, Maria, curled into a ball on the couch. When she saw Sofia, she launched herself across the room. "Safe," she cried, a full word, spoken with volume and clarity. "You're safe." "Yes, baby, I'm safe." "You're safe. We're all safe." Sofia held her tight, feeling the child's racing heart gradually slow. "I screamed," Isabella whispered, wonder in her voice. "I made sound come out." "You did. You were so brave. So brave. I thought he was going to hurt you like they hurt Mama. I couldn't let them. I had to scream. For help." Sofia's eyes met Vincenzo's over Isabella's head. The child had found her voice not to save herself, but to save someone she loved. Trauma had taken her words, and love had given them back. "You saved me," Sofia whispered into Isabella's hair. "You're my hero." That night, after Isabella finally fell asleep, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster, Vincenzo asked Sofia to join him in his study. She should have said no. Should have gone home to her tiny apartment and processed everything that had happened. But she was still running on adrenaline, still shaking with delayed reaction. And Vincenzo looked like he needed to say something important. He poured 2 glasses of expensive scotch without asking if she wanted one, and handed her one. "Drink. It helps with the adrenaline crash." Sofia took a sip, the burn welcome. What happened to that man? "He's being questioned. We'll know who sent him by morning." Vincenzo's jaw was tight. "And then the problem will be eliminated." "You mean you'll kill him?" "I mean the threat to my daughter will be permanently removed." "Don't ask me for details you don't want to know." Sofia should have been appalled. But all she felt was a grim satisfaction. That man had threatened Isabella. He deserved whatever consequences came his way. "This is my world, Sofia," Vincenzo said quietly. "This is what you signed up for when you agreed to help Isabella. There are people who want to hurt me by hurting her. Today won't be the last time someone tries. It might not even be the last time this month." "I know. Do you? Because this isn't like what happened with Emma Martinez." This isn't an unstable parent having a breakdown. This is organized crime, calculated violence, professionals who won't hesitate to kill a child if it serves their purpose. I understand that. Then why are you still here? The question was almost desperate. Why didn't you run the moment that man showed up? Why didn't you demand I call the police? Why are you sitting in my study drinking scotch instead of packing your bags? Sofia thought about that question, really thought about it. 2 months ago, she would have run, would have seen danger and retreated into her safe, invisible life. But something had changed. Isabella had changed her. Or maybe reconnecting with her purpose had changed her. I'm here because that little girl upstairs needs me. Sofia said, finally, because she screamed today for the first time in over a year, and it was to protect me. Because she's drawing pictures of us as a family and calling me safe. Because I made her a promise, and I don't break promises to children. Even if staying puts you in danger. Even then. Vincenzo set down his glass, his dark eyes searching her face. You punched an armed man today. I did. You didn't hesitate. Didn't think about your own safety. Just put yourself between him and Isabella. What else would I do? Most people would have run. Self-preservation is a powerful instinct. He stood and walked around his desk, stopping directly in front of her. But you didn't run. You fought. For my daughter. For our patient, Sofia corrected, though the words felt hollow. Because somewhere in the past 3 weeks, Isabella had stopped being just a patient. She'd become something more. Someone Sofia cared about deeply, protectively, the way she'd cared about Emma before everything fell apart. Except this time, Sofia wasn't going to let anything fall apart. I need to increase security around you, Vincenzo said. Alessandro will drive you to and from the estate. You'll have a security detail anytime you leave this property. That's not necessary. It's absolutely necessary. Today proved that anyone close to Isabella is a target. That includes you now. His hand came up, almost touching her cheek before he caught himself and dropped it. I cannot protect Isabella if I'm worried about you being vulnerable. Sofia wanted to argue, but he was right. She was a target now simply by association. Fine, but I'm not changing my life completely. I still need to see my sister, still need to have some privacy. Agreed. But when you're in transit, you'll be protected. Non-negotiable. They stood there, too close, the air between them charged with something Sofia didn't want to examine too closely. Vincenzo was her employer. He was dangerous. He was everything she should stay away from. But he was also a man who loved his daughter with devastating intensity, who had soundproofed his house based on one comment from a stranger, who was looking at Sofia like she'd just performed a miracle instead of simply doing what any decent person would do. I should go, Sofia said, stepping back. It's late. Alessandro will drive you. Of course he would, because Sofia's life had changed fundamentally today. She was no longer just Isabella's therapist. She was part of Vincenzo's world now, whether she wanted to be or not. As Alessandro drove her home through the quiet streets, Sofia's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for protecting her. You're braver than you know. V. Sofia stared at those words for a long time, her bruised hand throbbing, her heart racing with emotions she couldn't quite name. She'd come back from the edge today, had faced danger and fought instead of freezing, had chosen to stay instead of running. Emma's face flashed through her mind. Not the traumatized, silent Emma from after the incident, but the laughing, healing Emma who'd been making such progress. Maybe Vincenzo was right. Maybe healing Isabella was healing Sofia too. Her phone buzzed again. Lily this time. Are you okay? I had the weirdest feeling something happened. Sofia smiled despite everything. I'm okay. More than okay. I think I finally found where I'm supposed to be. She sent the text before she could second-guess it. Because despite the danger, despite the impossibility of the situation, despite every logical reason to run, Sofia had finally found something worth fighting for. And this time, she wasn't going to let fear win. The interrogation revealed what Vincenzo had suspected. The Calabrese family had sent the intruder. It was a power play, a test to see if Vincenzo had gone soft since Lucia's death. They'd calculated that a grieving widower focused on his traumatized daughter would be vulnerable, distracted, weak. They'd calculated wrong. Sofia learned this not from Vincenzo directly, but from the sudden increase in tension throughout the estate. More guards, more meetings behind closed doors. The way Vincenzo's jaw stayed perpetually clenched, the way his eyes went cold and distant when he thought no one was watching. There's going to be retaliation. Alessandro told Sofia one morning as he drove her to the estate. The boss doesn't let threats to Isabella go unanswered. What kind of retaliation? Sofia asked, though part of her didn't want to know. The kind that makes sure no one ever tries again. Sofia should have been horrified, should have demanded details, insisted on police involvement, held on to her moral high ground. But when she arrived at the estate and saw Isabella practicing her words with fierce determination, safe, strong, brave, protected, Sofia found she didn't care what Vincenzo did to the people who tried to hurt this child. Some things were worth protecting at any cost. For weeks after the incident in the garden, Isabella spoke her first full sentence. They were in the library, doing their usual morning session. Isabella had been making remarkable progress. Single words had become short phrases. Whispers had become normal speaking volume. But she still struggled with complex thoughts, with stringing together enough words to express everything locked inside her. Sofia was reading aloud from Charlotte's Web, a book about friendship and loss and the power of words to save lives. Isabella was curled up beside her on the window seat, following along in her own copy. When they reached the part where Charlotte dies, Isabella went very still. Her small hands clutched the book tightly, and Sofia could see tears forming in her eyes. "Bella, do you want to stop?" Sofia signed and spoke simultaneously, as had become their habit. Isabella shook her head. Then, slowly, carefully, she opened her mouth and spoke. "When Mama died, no one told me it was okay to be sad." The sentence hung in the air, each word clear and deliberate and devastating. Sofia's throat closed up. She set down her book and turned to face Isabella fully. "Oh, sweetheart. Papa was sad, but he wouldn't cry in front of me. Maria was sad, but she would leave the room. Everyone was sad but pretending not to be, and I didn't know if I was allowed to be sad too." Isabella's voice was getting stronger, words flowing faster now that the dam had broken. "So I just stopped talking because talking made people remember Mama, and remembering made them cry, and I didn't want everyone to cry all the time. Isabella, but Charlotte died, and Wilbur was sad, and everyone knew he was sad, and it was okay. No one told him to stop being sad, or to be brave, or to move on." Tears were streaming down Isabella's face now. "I miss my Mama. I miss her so much, and I never got to say goodbye, and I don't know if she knew I loved her. And I'm so angry that she left me, but I know it wasn't her fault, and I don't know how to feel all of these things at the same time." The words came out in a rush, over a year of grief and confusion and suppressed emotion finally finding their voice. Sofia pulled Isabella into her arms and held her while she sobbed, real, vocal sobs that shook her small frame. It's okay to miss her. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to feel everything all at once. Your feelings don't have to make sense. They just have to be real. "I'm scared I'll forget her," Isabella whispered against Sofia's shoulder. "I'm scared her voice will fade and her face will get blurry, and one day I won't remember what it felt like when she hugged me. Then we'll make sure you remember. We'll talk about her, look at pictures, share stories. Your Mama will stay alive in your memories as long as you keep her there." They stayed like that for a long time, Isabella crying while Sofia held her and murmured comfort. And when Vincenzo appeared in the doorway, he'd clearly heard Isabella's raised voice and come running. Sofia saw his face crumple at the sight of his daughter, finally grieving openly. He crossed the room and gathered them both into his arms, and the three of them held each other while Isabella cried for everything she'd lost and everything she was learning to accept. "Mi dispiace, piccola Stella," Vincenzo whispered, his own tears falling into Isabella's hair. "I'm so sorry. I thought protecting you from my grief would help you heal, but I should have let you see that it's okay to be broken. It's okay to hurt. You're sad too." Isabella pulled back to look at her father's face. "Every single day. Your Mama was the love of my life, and losing her broke something in me that will never completely heal. But you seem okay, because I have you, because taking care of you gives me a reason to keep going." Vincenzo cupped her face gently. "But that doesn't mean I'm not sad. It just means I've learned to carry the sadness alongside the love." Isabella looked between her father and Sofia, her young face serious. "Is that what Sofia does too? Carries sadness?" Sofia's breath caught. She'd never directly told Isabella about Emma, about the trauma that had driven her from her career. But children sense these things. "Yes," Sofia admitted. "I carry sadness about someone I tried to help once, someone I couldn't protect the way I wanted to. But you protected me," Isabella said firmly. "You punched that bad man and kept me safe." "I did. So maybe you don't have to be sad anymore. Maybe you can just carry the love part now. Out of the mouths of children, Sofia thought, her vision blurring with tears. Maybe Isabella was right. Maybe it was time to let go of the guilt and just hold on to the love, for Emma, for the work she'd done, for the person she'd been before fear had taken over. Vincenzo was watching Sofia over Isabella's head, his expression unreadable but intense. Isabella, why don't you go wash your face? Sofia and I need to talk for a moment. After Isabella left, walking steadily now, not retreating to her closet or shutting down, Vincenzo turned to Sofia. She spoke a full sentence. Multiple sentences. She did. About her mother. About grief. About things she's been holding inside for over a year. She's ready. The progress wasn't just about communication skills. It was about feeling safe enough to be vulnerable. Vincenzo took a step closer. You did that. You made her feel safe. We did it together. You, me, Maria, everyone who loves her. No, another step closer. This was you. You walked into our lives and changed everything. Sofia's heart was racing. They were standing too close, the air between them charged with something that had been building for weeks. Vincenzo, I'm falling in love with you. The words dropped like a bomb into the quiet library. Sofia's mind went blank. What? I know it's inappropriate. I know you're Isabella's therapist, and I'm your employer, and there are 1,000 reasons why this is wrong. Vincenzo's voice was rough, urgent. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way. You're not just helping my daughter. You're bringing light back into my life. You're making me remember what it feels like to hope, to want something beyond just survival. You don't mean that. You're grateful for what I've done with Isabella, and you're confusing gratitude with. Don't tell me what I'm feeling. He closed the remaining distance between them. I've spent 13 months in a fog of grief and rage and helplessness. And then you appeared, and suddenly the world had color again. Suddenly I could breathe. Is it so impossible to believe that I could fall for the woman who gave me back my daughter and made me remember how to be human? Sofia's hands were shaking. This can't happen. The ethics alone. I don't care about ethics. I care about you. I'm Isabella's therapist. Getting involved with you would compromise everything we've built. It would undermine my professional credibility. It could even hurt Isabella's progress. Then what do we do? Vincenzo asked quietly. Because this thing between us isn't going away. I see the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. I feel the electricity when we're in the same room. Tell me you don't feel it too. Sofia wanted to lie, wanted to deny everything he was saying, but she'd built her entire relationship with Isabella on honesty, on authentic communication. How could she be dishonest now? I feel it, she whispered. I feel everything you're describing, and it terrifies me. Why? Because you're dangerous. Because your world involves violence and threats and things I don't understand. Because caring about you means accepting that any day I could lose you the way Isabella lost Lucia. Because I've spent 2 years building walls to protect myself, and you're asking me to tear them all down. I am. Vincenzo's hand came up to cup her face, his touch gentle despite the calluses and scars. I'm asking you to take a risk on me, on us, on this impossible thing we're building. And I know it's not fair. I know I'm asking for everything while offering you a life that's complicated and dangerous and nothing like what you deserve. What do I deserve? Safety, stability, a man without blood on his hands and enemies at his door. Someone who can give you a normal life. I don't want normal, Sofia said, the truth surprising even herself. I tried normal. I tried safe and stable and predictable. And it left me broken and hollow and going through the motions of existing without actually living. She placed her hand over his where it rested against her cheek. You and Isabella have given me back my purpose. You've reminded me why I became a therapist in the first place. You've made me brave again. Then be brave enough to give us a chance. Sofia closed her eyes, weighing everything. The ethics violations, the danger, the impossibility of maintaining professional boundaries when her heart was already invested. And then she thought about Isabella's words. Maybe you can just carry the love part now. If we do this, Sofia said slowly, opening her eyes, we do it right. I finish my work with Isabella first. We establish her progress, create a transition plan, maybe bring in another therapist to take over maintenance care. I won't compromise her treatment. Agreed. And you have to promise me something. Anything. You have to promise that no matter what happens between us, you'll always put Isabella first. If our relationship ever threatens her well-being or her progress, we end it. No questions, no arguments. She comes first. Vincenzo's eyes were fierce. Isabella will always come first. For both of us. That's not negotiable. Then yes, Sofia whispered. Yes, I'll give us a chance. Vincenzo kissed her then, and it felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff simultaneously. His lips were soft despite everything hard about him, and he held her like she was something precious and fragile and essential. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Sofia laughed shakily. We're insane. Completely, Vincenzo agreed, but I've never been more certain of anything. A throat cleared from the doorway. Isabella stood there, her face clean from washing, her eyes bright with something that looked suspiciously like mischief. She signed, Finally, I've been waiting forever for Papa to kiss you. Sofia felt her face go hot. Isabella, you make him smile. He hasn't smiled like that since before Mama died. And you make me feel safe. That means you should be family. Real family, not just therapist family. Vincenzo knelt down to Isabella's level. Bella, Sofia, and I care about each other very much. But her job right now is to help you, and we need to make sure that stays the most important thing. Can you understand that? Isabella nodded seriously. Then she signed, but after she's done helping me talk again, then can she stay? Can she be my new mama? The question hung in the air, innocent and devastating and full of hope. Sofia saw Vincenzo's eyes fill with tears. She felt her own heart crack open. That's a very big question, Sofia said gently, kneeling beside Vincenzo. And it's not something we can answer right now. But I promise you this, I'm not going anywhere. Whether I'm your therapist or your friend or something else, I'm going to be part of your life. Is that enough for now? Isabella thought about it, then nodded. For now. But I'm still going to draw pictures of us as a family. Because that's what I want to happen. After Isabella went to find Maria, Sofia, and Vincenzo stayed, kneeling on the library floor, hands clasped, both processing what had just happened. She wants you to be her mother, Vincenzo said wonderingly. She wants to feel complete again. To have the family structure she lost. Is that so wrong? No, but it's complicated. I need to finish her treatment properly, establish that she's stable and thriving on her own merit, not just because I'm here. Otherwise, we risk her progress being dependent on my presence, and that's not sustainable or healthy. How long? 2 more months. Maybe 3. Enough time to transition her to maintenance care, to ensure she's using her voice consistently, to make sure this breakthrough sticks. Vincenzo nodded, though Sofia could see the impatience in his eyes. And after that, we see what this could be, without the complication of me being her therapist. Without the ethics violations. Just us figuring out if what we feel is real or just trauma bonding and gratitude. It's real, Vincenzo said with certainty. I already know it's real. Then it'll still be real in 3 months. The next 8 weeks were a delicate balance of professional boundaries and growing feelings. Sofia continued Isabella's therapy with rigorous focus. They worked on maintaining her verbal communication even when stressed. They processed her grief about Lucia in healthy ways, memory boxes, letters to heaven, art projects that celebrated her mother's life instead of just mourning her death. They practiced social situations, preparing Isabella to return to school full-time. And Isabella flourished. She started at a new school designed for children with special needs, where sign language was incorporated into daily learning. She made friends, real friends who communicated with her in whatever way worked best. She joined an after-school art program. She laughed, played, and slowly started acting like an 8-year-old child instead of a trauma survivor. But there were still hard moments. One afternoon, 6 weeks into their plan, Isabella had a setback. A car backfired outside the school, and the sound sent her into a full panic attack. She stopped speaking for 3 days, retreating into sign language and written notes. Sofia worked with her through it, reminding her that healing wasn't linear, that setbacks didn't erase progress. And when Isabella finally spoke again, it was to say, I was scared, but I knew you'd help me come back. Those words confirmed what Sofia had been documenting carefully. Isabella's progress was no longer dependent on Sofia's presence. She'd internalized the coping skills, developed her own resilience, created a foundation strong enough to withstand setbacks. It was time to transition. Sofia brought in Dr. Patricia Monroe, a colleague she trusted implicitly, to begin co-sessions with Isabella. Patricia would take over maintenance care, monthly check-ins, support during difficult moments, ongoing skill reinforcement. Isabella was resistant at first, but Sofia explained it carefully. I'll always be your friend. I'll still see you, still be part of your life. But you're doing so well now that you don't need intensive therapy anymore. You need someone who can check in occasionally and help you maintain your progress. Dr. Monroe is wonderful, and she'll be here for you. But what will you do? Isabella asked. Sofia glanced at Vincenzo, who was sitting in on the session. I'll still be around. Maybe in a different role. If that's okay with you. Isabella's face lit up. You mean like Papa's girlfriend? Both adults laughed, the tension breaking. Maybe, Sofia admitted. If we all decide that's what we want. I decide that's what I want, Isabella said firmly. I already told you. You're family. The transition took another month. By the time Dr. Monroe had established a strong relationship with Isabella and Sofia had documented all progress and created comprehensive care plans, it was mid-December. Snow was falling outside the Rossi estate the day Sofia officially ended her therapeutic relationship with Isabella. They had a small ceremony, just the three of them in the library where so much of their work had happened. You came into my life when I couldn't speak, Isabella said, reading from a letter she'd written. You taught me that there are lots of ways to communicate, and that being silent doesn't mean you have nothing to say. You taught me that it's okay to be sad and scared and angry. You taught me that healing takes time, but it's worth it. And most of all, you taught me that family isn't just the people you're born with. It's the people who choose to love you. She handed Sofia a drawing, the three of them holding hands in a garden full of flowers. This is us. Our family, if you want it to be. Sofia was crying too hard to respond verbally. She just nodded and pulled Isabella into a fierce hug. Vincenzo wrapped his arms around both of them. So what happens now? He asked softly. Sofia pulled back, wiping her eyes. Now I stop being Isabella's therapist. And I start being whatever comes next. Isabella giggled and ran from the room, calling over her shoulder. I'm going to tell Maria you're finally official. She owes me $5. Alone in the library, Vincenzo and Sofia faced each other. I've been patient, Vincenzo said. 3 months, like you asked. Isabella is thriving. You've successfully transitioned her care. There are no more professional boundaries between us. No, there aren't. So I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Sofia's heart raced. Okay. Do you love me? The question was direct, vulnerable, everything Vincenzo had learned from watching Sofia work with Isabella. No games, no pretense. Just honest communication. Yes, Sofia said without hesitation. I love you. I love Isabella. I love the life we've been building together, even though it's complicated and dangerous and nothing I ever planned for. Move in with us. What? Move in with us. Not as Isabella's therapist. As my partner. As part of this family. Vincenzo took her hands. I know it's fast. I know it's unconventional. But we've been dancing around this for months, and I'm tired of pretending we're not already committed to each other. Vincenzo. I love you, Sofia Chen. I love your courage and your compassion and the way you see beauty in broken things. I love that you punched an armed man to protect my daughter. I love that you're teaching me how to communicate honestly instead of hiding behind walls. I love everything about you, and I want to build a life together. Sofia thought about her tiny apartment in Chinatown, about the lonely life she'd been living for 2 years, about how coming to this estate every day had started to feel more like coming home than going to her actual home. What about the danger, the threats, everything that comes with your world? I can't promise you safety. You know that. But I can promise you protection. I can promise that I'll do everything in my power to keep you and Isabella safe. And I can promise that whatever happens, we'll face it together. Sofia looked around the library, the window seat where she'd first read to Isabella, the desk where she'd documented progress, the corner where they'd all held each other while Isabella cried for her mother. This room held memories of healing and growth and family. Yes, Sofia said. Yes, I'll move in. Yes, I'll build this life with you. Vincenzo kissed her then, deep and thorough and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to make you so happy. You already do. The garden party was Sofia's idea, a celebration of Isabella's 9th birthday, but also of how far they'd all come. The estate's garden was decorated with streamers and balloons. Isabella's friends from school ran around playing games, their laughter, both voiced and signed, filling the air with joy. Maria had made an elaborate cake. Dr. Monroe was there, beaming with pride at her thriving patient. Even Lily had come, charming everyone with stories about Sofia's childhood. Sofia stood on the terrace, watching the chaos with a smile. She wore a simple sundress, her hair loose, looking more relaxed than she had in years. Vincenzo came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Happy, ridiculously so. Even though you're living with a dangerous criminal, especially because of that. She turned in his arms. You've taught me that life worth living involves some risk, that love means choosing courage over safety. You taught me that too. You taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, that asking for help is strength, that family can be rebuilt from broken pieces. They watched Isabella teaching her friends a new sign language game, her voice clear and confident, her face alight with happiness. She's remarkable, Sofia said. She gets it from her mothers. Sofia's breath caught. Vincenzo had started calling her Isabella's mother a month ago, casually, like it was the most natural thing in the world. And Isabella had started calling her Mama Sofia to distinguish her from Lucia, who would always be Mama. I never thought I'd have this, Sofia admitted. After Emma, I thought I destroyed my chance at this kind of work, this kind of love. Emma's doing better, you know. Sofia looked up sharply. What? I may have used my resources to check on her. She's in a new program, working with a therapist who specializes in trauma. She's making progress. Slowly but steadily. Tears filled Sofia's eyes. You checked on her for me? I know you carry guilt about her. I wanted you to know that she's healing, that what happened wasn't the end of her story. Sofia kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into the gesture. When they pulled apart, Isabella was standing in front of them with several of her friends. Mama Sofia, Papa, can we show you our performance? We learned a song in sign language. Of course, Piccola Stella. They gathered with the other parents to watch the children perform. It was chaotic and imperfect and absolutely beautiful. Isabella stood in the center, signing with confidence, her voice joining in on the chorus. And when she looked at Sofia and Vincenzo in the audience, her smile was pure sunshine. After the party, after the guests had left, and Isabella was tucked into bed, Sofia and Vincenzo sat in the library with glasses of wine. I have something for you, Vincenzo said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Sofia's heart stopped. Vincenzo? It's not what you think. Not yet. He opened the box to reveal a key. This is the key to the estate. It's yours now, officially. Your name is on the deed, on the accounts, on everything. If anything happens to me, you and Isabella are protected, provided for. This is your home, legally and officially. Sofia took the key, feeling its weight. You're giving me ownership. I'm giving you security. I'm making sure that no matter what happens in my world, you and Isabella are safe. He took her hand. But I'm also asking you something else. What? Marry me? Sofia's breath caught. Not now, Vincenzo continued. I know it's too soon. But eventually, when you're ready, marry me. Make this permanent. Let me spend the rest of my life loving you and Isabella and building this family we've created. Sofia looked at this man who'd opened his broken heart to her, who'd learned to communicate vulnerably, who'd built an entire life around protecting the people he loved. Yes, she whispered. Eventually, yes. They sealed it with a kiss. And somewhere upstairs, Isabella's nightlight glowed softly, illuminating drawings of a family. Whole, healed, and full of love. 2 years later, Sofia stood in front of her nonprofit's new building, ribbon-cutting scissors in hand. The New Voices Foundation had grown beyond her wildest dreams. Funded entirely by Vincenzo, run by Sofia and a team of therapists she'd personally trained, serving dozens of children who'd lost their ability to communicate through trauma. Isabella stood beside her, now 11 years old and thriving. She served as the foundation's youth ambassador, sharing her story with other children, showing them that healing was possible. Vincenzo stood on Sofia's other side, his hand resting on her lower back. He'd stepped back from some of his more dangerous business dealings, focusing instead on legitimate enterprises. Not because Sofia had asked, though she had, but because he wanted to build a life that Isabella could be proud of. The ribbon was cut to applause. Cameras flashed, and as they toured the facility, therapy rooms designed with sensory needs in mind, play areas for processing trauma, quiet spaces for children who needed to retreat, Sofia felt Emma's presence. This was for her, for all the Emmas and Isabellas. for every child who'd lost their voice and needed someone to help them find it again. That evening, at home, Sofia found Isabella in the library with Dr. Monroe. They were reviewing Isabella's progress notes, something they did quarterly now, tracking her continued growth. "How's our star patient?" Sofia asked. "Remarkable," Dr. Monroe said warmly. "No setbacks in 6 months. Using her voice consistently. Processing difficult emotions appropriately. She's one of my greatest success stories." After Dr. Monroe left, Isabella hugged Sofia tightly. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what, sweetie?" "For not giving up on me. For teaching me how to be brave. For becoming my mama." Sofia's eyes filled with tears, the good kind, the kind that came from overwhelming love. "You taught me how to be brave too," Sofia whispered. "We saved each other." That night, Vincenzo proposed officially, down on one knee in the garden where they'd first begun this journey, with Isabella watching and crying happy tears. Sofia said yes without hesitation, because this was her family, her home, her second chance at everything she'd thought she lost. And as Vincenzo slipped a ring on her finger and Isabella threw herself into both their arms, Sofia realized something profound. Sometimes the people who save us are the ones we end up saving in return. Sometimes broken things, when pieced back together, become stronger than they ever were whole. And sometimes a shy waitress and a dangerous man and a silent child could build something beautiful from the wreckage of their pasts. Love, after all, was the loudest language of all. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.